Cycle 3. Right. So, let's review a little bit. So, we got our little thing here going. Can make some lines. That wasn't really a coherent sentence, but we're at the point where, if you've been following along, we're making this text editor, and it's kind of a funky text editor. You don't just type in it; you have to go into typing mode. So when you're not in typing mode, the letters actually do things. So we've made it so that the letter O creates new lines, and this is because it's based on this actual text editor called Vim, in which the letter O creates new lines. So we just got that working. Only took an hour, almost two. But no, it's been a good learning experience. And so we're gonna kick it off. I just had a 10-minute break, got some water, got up, stretched, feeling good. Okay, so what am I trying to accomplish this cycle? Well, given that we only have 3 cycles left, we gotta. This is a thing, is we need to pace ourselves. We need to kind of think about what we can do in roughly an hour and a half worth of work time. So, I'd like to get to the basic point where we can navigate between the lines using keys, not clicking, and we can like create lines, we can delete lines, and we can edit lines. Like that would be kind of the basic functionality I'd like to kind of get done. And it's kind of interesting also to note that like I didn't know that that would be the objective we would have at the beginning. But now that we're roughly halfway through, it's like, okay, now I kind of know how hard this is going to be. Now I kind of know how long things are going to take. So now I can kind of plan things out a little bit more. So as we started off with a vaguer objective, but as we started making progress, it started to become a little bit more clear what a reasonable objective would be. Anyways, that's meta conversation. And we're using up our precious time here. So that's what I want. Add, delete, navigate lines, and edit. Let's try and get this cycle. Let's try and get everything but editing. I bet we can do that. We've already got adding, so we just need deleting and navigating. Boom. So add functionality to navigate and delete lines. All right. How do I get started? So actually, I thought about this before. I actually want to start by adding some version control because we haven't done that at all. And so I want to start using Git so that we can track our progress. Just because that's kind of a good practice to get into, and it does kind of help keep your changes. If you need to kind of go back on something, it kind of helps just to save your progress. Any hazard present? I don't know. Perhaps, Frank may return. No, I'm just kidding. No. In general, this is only because I'm live streaming, but the chat itself can be a hazard for me. But if I wasn't live streaming, I'd say probably pretty good. I'm working in my apartment. Nobody here. Nobody's going to be here for a little while. So I got it to myself. I do have 3 cats who can be a little crazy sometimes, but they're all sleeping. So I think we're pretty good in terms of hazards. Still feeling good. Maybe I'm coming a little down, but I think I'm feeling pretty good. Morale, I'm going to keep it at medium. If we nail this cycle, I might be pretty excited because I think that would be pretty cool. And I'm happy that that the objective is kind of crystallizing a little bit. It's becoming more clear. All right, so that's the whole thing that we do at the beginning of the cycle. That's the planning phase. So official sounding. So let's dive in. So we want to navigate. Oh, sorry. We want to add some version control. So first, I'm just going to do some magic here on the old command line. What's interesting is this already has version control set up. Did I do that? I don't know. Ah, okay. It just happens automatically. Well, I'm just going to create one more initial commit. So if you don't know what I'm doing, I'm not really going to explain it. No, I will a little bit, but basically I'm just telling it what changes I want it to track for this round. So I'm saying we modified this file, we deleted this file, we made a new file, we modified this one. But I'm just going to kind of chunk them all together as like initial changes. And now you see that this little X has disappeared. That means there hasn't been any changes since the last time we saved to our version control. And I'm going to jump back into our app here. And you'll now see that if I make a change, like if I add a line here and I save it, we get this little plus sign. That means this is a new line. So that's kind of a cool thing that's going to happen, is it's going to kind of help us track the specific changes we make as we work along this objective. So that's version control, pretty straightforward. So now let's dive in. So let's actually do deletion first, because I think that'll be pretty easy. So yeah, so to do that, we're actually going to repurpose. I think that's the best way to do this. We're going to repurpose this make new line, and this is actually just going to be handle key press. So this method is getting an upgrade, and it's just going to handle everything, man. It's not just new lines. It's moving on up. So now to delete a line, we're going to use the letter D, because that's what Vim does. So what is the code? Once again, we need the code. D is 68. That means it's the letter D. And if that's the case, now we need to get a little smart here. So we need to set lines, 2 lines without the selected line. So basically, we need to just remove whatever the selected line is from the array of lines. And I think this is actually, so there's this function in JavaScript. I always forget if it's slice or splice. I think it's splice. I think we want splice. Changes the contents of an array by removing or replacing existing elements or adding new elements. So what? Wow, that's fascinating. I didn't know you could do that. Okay, wait. So what did this do? Oh, okay, this inserted February as the first element. 0 is the number of items to remove. 1 is the offset, and this is if you want to add a new item, which we don't actually want to do. So I think the offset is just splice. The offset is just whatever the selected line number is. We only want to remove 1 item every time. We don't want to add anything, so I think we're good there. One other fancy little thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pull lines out of this .state. This is a fancy new little feature of the newest form of JavaScript, ES6, which allows me to get rid of this. So now lines is actually just its own little variable, and I kind of pulled it out of this .state in this line. But anyways, that just kind of cleans things up a bit. I think that's that may be all we need for deletion. So let's find out. We need selected line number. Okay, so now we're adding lines, and I'm gonna hit D. That didn't work. That's fun. That didn't work at all. I was so sure that it would too. What happened there? That's interesting. Maybe splice doesn't actually return. Oh, I think that's the problem. So the problem is that splice itself doesn't return. It just edits lines. It doesn't actually return the new form of lines, which is what I want, the spliced lines. So I could do it like this. I could make its own thing. I could call it spliced lines, and then, or no, I can't do that. No, I just have to call it. I don't really like that. Now, let's see. How about subset slice? Okay. Here's what we want. So actually what we can do is we'll slice it. What were we thinking with a slice? We don't want to slice, we want to slice. How does this work? Orange, lemon. Okay, so these are still indices. Okay, so we want selected line number to selected line number plus 1. Or sorry, okay, we want everything before the selected line number, which is 0, which is 0 is the start, up to the selected line number. And then we want everything starting at the selected line number, starting 1 after the selected line number to the end. So I think we can just leave off the second parameter. Oh. Let's see. Lines.map. Lines.map is not a function. Still didn't like that. Oh, right, because I'm living in Python world. Because I'm doing things. I'm writing Python. Is that right? No. Oh, yeah. Now we can delete. Oh, yeah. So see, I'm pushing O to add lines, and then D is deleting the green line, and then selecting the next line as the green. So the fact that they all have the same thing kind of makes it look weird. But voila. And so now that we have our fancy little history tracking set up, so now we can see these are all the changes necessary to add deletion functionality. So now I'm just going to select all of these, yes, Y. I'm going to make a little note, add deletion functionality. And boom, now we've saved that little nugget of work that we've accomplished. And so now we just need to do navigation. And let's see, so we're going until 2:30. So I'm going to set a timer again. So set a timer for 15 minutes roughly. Okay. Okay. All right. So now we just need navigation. So I'm going to do that with the letters K and J. And you may ask why. And I may respond, because. And you may say, well, that's not a very helpful answer. And then I'd be like, I'm just kidding. The real reason is that it's actually pretty convenient. It might seem weird if you've never used Vim, but J and K are like right where your pointer and your middle finger kind of just naturally sort of land. And it's so much easier going up and down using those two letters than having to reach all the way over to the up and down arrows. I mean, God forbid. But no, I'm serious. It is actually a lot easier. And if you like to be fast, it certainly doesn't hurt. So this is J and this is K. Just updating our documentation here. So now we just need to add the functionality for each one of these, and that'll be navigation. Okay, so we don't actually need to change lines in this case. We're just changing the selected line number, and we're just decreasing it by 1, right? For J, that'll move us up, and for K, we're just increasing it by 1. And let's see, let's add some lines and then, oh yeah, look at that. I'm pushing J and it's going up. I'm pushing K and it's going down. And then let's see, I'm going to delete this line, D, D, D. Now I've somehow managed to select a line that doesn't exist. Okay, here we go. Probably want to add a check for that, so that's not possible. But here, let me see if I can delete this first line. Oh man, look at that. Look at that. I'm kind of excited. All right. Cool. That's navigation. So, boom, once again, mission accomplished with 12 minutes to spare, which is cool. Also means that we probably could have been a little bit more ambitious. Of course, we still can. But it's just kind of interesting to take a second here and reflect that at the beginning of this cycle, I was worried that this might have been too ambitious. And now it turns out we've gotten through it in half of the time of the cycle. So it's kind of funny how bad you can be at estimating your own productivity, because I thought we would have gotten much more done in these, like, we ended up hitting a dead end kind of early on. But in a lot of these cases, I ended up getting a lot more progress done than I thought. And this is also kind of pleasing because I think we're reaching a good kind of end point, so to speak. I mean, for this little 5-cycle work session, I think we're reaching a point where we'll actually have kind of a usable product. It won't be, like I said, not going to have a lot of features, but it'll write stuff. So you know what? Let's just go crazy and see if we can't make this editable. So, actually, wait. First, let's add a check here to make sure we can't select lines that don't exist, because that's kind of silly. Yeah, there's actually a few things we need to add, because we also need to make sure if we delete the last line, we're not selecting, the index that we're selecting is going to be a line that doesn't exist still. So, so I think, what do we do? What do we do with a drunken sailor? Okay, if I add that and I delete this, we want it to go up one. And if I delete, yeah. So, so first, let's just finish navigation, because that's kind of what we were starting on. That's what these changes are all about right here. So, so we just need to make sure. So a fun way to do this, which would be the smart way, is, I think, max. Be there such a thing? That's not max. Yeah, so smart way to do this. What we want is, we don't want selected line number to ever go below 0, because that doesn't make sense, right? 0 is the first one. You can't select the line before the first line. So we need to make sure that this never, if selected line number is already 0 and you try to move up, nothing should happen, right? So fancy way to do that is, we're just going to select the max, which is the highest of 2 numbers, and we're going to give it 2 numbers. The first is going to be the number that we already gave it, which is whatever the current line number is minus 1. The second option that we're going to give it is 0. So we're going to say, basically we're saying take the highest of these 2 options. So the only time when 0 would be the higher of the 2 options is if selected line number is 0, and then we're subtracting 1 from it. So then we're comparing -1 and 0, and so the biggest of the two is 0 itself. So that should solve our problem. And then I think we can do the same deal with this doohickey. So in this case, we actually want the minimum. We want the smallest. And the smallest of two options. And the alternative that we want to offer, instead of increasing the selected line number, is the number of lines, right? I think. So if there's one line, and selected line number is 0, and we try to click down, then we're going to get 1. Oh, actually, it should be length -1. So we're going to have 1 as the option here, and length -1 will be 0. And in fact, we will want it, the answer should be 0, because you can't move down. There's only one item, right? So it'll say, okay, what's the smaller of 1 and 0? 0. And if my hypothesis is correct, we should no longer be able to move. Yep. Wait, you know what? Oh, J moves. Oops, I got these backwards. Oh my God. All of the Vim lovers out there are just totally hating me right now. I got those backwards. Okay, so, well, I should put them in the right order though. So I just need to change the code around. J should move down. So if I make some lines and now I'm pushing J, there we go. J moves down, K moves up. And I'm pushing K and nothing's happening. So that's working. Can't go past the first one. I'm pushing, all right, I'm pushing K in this case, and now I'm pushing J, and it's not working. And I can even hold it down. How badass is that? Free functionality right there. Okay. All right. All right. I'm just going to put that away, that little chunk of code here. So now it's telling us, okay, that's the changes you made. And I'm like, yeah, dog, that's the changes I made. And that adds navigation. I don't know why I'm putting that in quotes. Navigation functionality. Booyah. Okay, now the last thing that I want to do in this cycle, which we have 5 minutes for, so this is kind of perfect, is I want to add a safety guard or kind of a, because there's a little bit of a trap here. When we delete a line, and I think we can even probably reproduce this bug. If I select this last line and I delete it, technically I am now still selecting a line, but it's a line that no longer exists. And probably if I try to delete another line, we'll get an error. Pushing B now. Well, nothing's happening. Either way, it's kind of weird that we're suddenly not selecting a line. What I would prefer is that we delete the last line and then it selects the new last line. So let's make that happen. So the way I'm just going to do that is I'm going to say new selected line number, or actually here, selected line number. So we're going to set this dependent on, so we're going to ask the code a little question. So we're going to say, is the selected line number equal to the length of lines? Question mark. Because if so, then we want to decrease it by 1 to select the one before the last, because we're deleting the last. If not, then we're all good. Let's see how that works. Okay, selecting the last one, deleting. Nope. What did I do wrong? I think this is supposed to be -1 because it's good old 0 indexing. Delete. Oh yeah, check that out. Oh yeah. Cool. All right. So that fixes. So I'm gonna add this code, and I'm going to call this, I'm going to say this fix bug where deleting last line screws up line selection. All right. And we are just cruising along here. Just cruising along. Yeah, so we got 2 minutes left. And let's say, definitely completed cycle's target. Anything noteworthy? Once again, we were amazing. And we surpassed our expectations. I hate it when that happens, but not really. Any distractions? I don't think so. Pretty focused right there. And things to improve for next cycle. I think the only thing to start doing, because that went pretty well. I mean, once again, I said let's get a decent starting objective, and once again we kind of blew through it. So that's another thing. That's something we could continue to try and focus on. But it's getting better, and like I said, it's not the end of the world. So the other thing that I would say to try and improve is that kind of keep in mind where we are in this whole stretch. It's kind of a marathon, right? We're going for 5 cycles. We're going for 3 hours. Getting towards the end, right? We only have one more cycle before the last one, and the last cycle I usually like to use as kind of our wrapping up. You're not really adding new functionality or changing anything. You're just kind of like maybe tweaking the appearance, and actually you might want to use that last cycle to like share your results with somebody. I don't know, tweet it or something. So this cycle 4 is going to be kind of the last big cycle that we actually do any new functionality stuff. So I'd say things to improve is think about winding it down because we almost done. Why am I talking like that? I'm going to add a balloon. Because I feel like it. All right. I'm going to pause the stream. As I get a new viewer, welcome new viewer. You're just in time for me to take a break. I'm going to take a break and I will be back at 2:40. I'm actually 3 minutes early. I set this timer way too early. I'm going to take a break in 2 minutes and 4 seconds. But and then I'll be back at 2:40. We'll start winding this down and just to kind of check back in. So here's where we're at. Got this text editor. We're selecting lines with this green border. So we're kind of moving along. And our new friend here, M. Croft, is asking, what are we building? Great question, because I was just about to answer that. And my timer is going off. We are building a text editor, M. Croft. So basically, we're trying to build kind of, Notepad, basically. It's not the loftiest of goals, but that's what I'm going for. I'm trying to add some kind of features, some cool features to it, some hotkeys and stuff like that. But a pretty simple, basic text editor is what we're going for. So right now, this is what I have. This spinning atom thing is probably the coolest thing on this page, and I did not make that. But so you can ignore that. But these lines here, this would be our quote-unquote text editor. So I've got a couple things. We can add lines here. I'm pushing O to add lines. I can move up and down, so I can select different lines, and then I can push D to delete lines. And that's what we got. That's what we got, M. Croft. Hope that kind of made sense. Cool, he says, looks good to me. Thanks for coming. And yeah, also, since you just got here, I'll just kind of explain. So I'm working through this in sort of this segmented style. So I'm working it in 30-minute chunks, and this is kind of the progress that we've been making, and just reached the end of our third chunk, our third cycle, and I'm going to take a break here, and I'm going to be back in 10 minutes. Get my blood flowing, do some stretching, whatnot, listen to some heavy metal. And I'll be back in 10 minutes, and we'll start to wrap this thing up. Cool. I will see you guys then.